La pregunta es, ¿por qué solo jugamos así 3 o 4 veces al año? The question is, why do we only play like this 3 or 4 times a year? With the players we've got, that intensity, focus and efficiency should be the standard. We kept pushing, controlled pretty much the game, and stayed ahead for a long spell durante un largo tramo del partido. But in the end, we fell just short. Morimos en la orilla. That said, heads held high, cabezas altas, and I can't help but mention this. Even if it is no excuse for being knocked out, that red card for Camavinga minutes before extra time in a Champions League quarterfinal is hard to take. Still, to me, this kid is not exactly the brightest bulb, el más listo de la clase. Literalmente, la bombilla que más brilla. Muy buenas a todos, gente buena, buena gente, football geeks, frikis del fútbol, football geeks, and welcome to a new episode of Inglés para Vikingos. Look, my fellow Madridistas, we have to admit it. Bayern Munich deserved to win this time, esta eliminatoria. We gave them too much of the ball for too long while sitting way too deep. And that's basically playing football Russian roulette. Jugar a la ruleta rusa en el fútbol. It's a critical mistake. We were playing with fire and in the end we got burned. That said, on the break, en las salidas al contragolpe, on the counter, we were lethal. Fuimos letales. We were lethal. Every time we won a duel, went wide and broke fast. We looked dangerous. That's where our team can hurt anyone and break any defensive shape. And it would be more clinical in the second half with those 3-4 clear cut chances, con esas claras ocasiones que tuvimos, those 3-4 clear chances, I'm convinced we go through this time every day of the week. No doubt about it, folks. But guys, we were up against the beast, a proper powerhouse. Estábamos ante todo un peso pesado. We had to beat a team in a Champions League tie in their own backyard, en su propia cancha. Literalmente, en su propio patio, in their own backyard. A team coming off a record-breaking Bundesliga scoring run, a side that's barely conceded goals, que apenas ha concedido goles. In fact, in their entire history, this was only the second time they've conceded 3 in the first half. Guess when and against who the first time was? Exactly, Real Madrid again, back in the 2013-2014 season, and that one ended 0-4. So as of today, Bayern Munich se considera arguably the most informed team in Europe. Honestly, it was a massive ask, a real tall order, un reto muy difícil. Notice that expression is very common in English to describe something really hard to pull off, a tall order. So it was a tall order, and even more so, given how inconsistent, borderline poor, tirando a mala, our season has been all things considered. And lads, for me, we got the absolute maximum out of this team in Munich, considering where we are at this stage of the season, in terms of form, confidence, injuries, everything. As a matter of fact, I'm sure many Madridistas like me and like you watching this video felt that spark, sintió esa chispa. That little belief or last spells of the game that maybe it was one of those nights. Because we all know how this club works. When we are on the ropes, cuando estamos ahí tirados contra las cuerdas, when we are on the ropes, just written off, this team can land 2 or 3 punches out of nowhere and knock you out in a flash. Precisely, we've already battered Bayern years ago, as I said before, in another tie where everyone wrote us off as underdogs. Nos daba por muertos, nos daba por perdedores. Even the Spanish press, the Spanish media. I still remember Bayern Munich's president saying, "The trees will burn in Munich when Real Madrid comes here." Well, we all know how that ended. Turns out what really went up in flames that night was the stadium when we left. 2 from Sergio Ramos, 2 from Cristiano Ronaldo, all 4 a proper hammering at their own turf. Una considerable paliza en su propio campo. So once again, we were close, so close to pulling off another feat, una nueva hazaña, another feat, and reaching yet another Champions League semi-final. But I've got to be honest with myself, folks. I think football was fair. Over the 2 legs, the team that offered more, that had a clear identity, a better structure, and better football in general went through. It's true we were ahead from the first half and for most of the second. As a matter of fact, At 2-3 near the end, I was watching it with some mates. We even ordered another round, already picturing extra time. And once you enter extra time or penalties, it's a coin toss. Es una moneda al aire, a coin toss. The semifinals felt within reach, al alcance, within reach. And that really gives a lot of credit to our team. Y eso dice mucho a favor del equipo. We gave it everything, went all in, and made the most of the tools we had. I reckon I've said it before, guys, but I'm convinced that if we've taken one of the 2 or 3 clear-cut chances in the second half, at 2-4 we would have killed the game. There were about 15 minutes left, and Bayern would have had to chase it, unexpectedly, with the crowd silenced. That would have been a massive blow for them. Un duro golpe para ellos, a massive blow for them. But it wasn't to be. It wasn't the case, my fellow Madridistas. And for me, it came down to 2 main things. And I know it's easy to say now in hindsight, a toro pasado, in hindsight, but honestly, that's how I see it. The first one, when I saw Camavinga warming up, I just didn't feel good about it. It didn't give me any confidence. And that's tough to say, because he used to be one of my favorite players in the past. But over the last 2 seasons, instead of progressing, he's gone backwards. At RMadrid, you have to deliver every game. In key moments, he looked rushed, makes poor decisions, has no clear role, lousy passes, late in duels, and at times, he's actually cost us with big mistakes. Either penalties, goals, or even red cards like in this game. And let's not forget that that's without mentioning the injuries. So yeah, I wasn't convinced. Deep down, I'd gone with Thiago. His energy and fight in extra time could have given us a real lift, un empujón real, a real lift. And the second thing why the miracle didn't happen? Lads, it's obvious, the referee. I won't go too hard on him. For me, it was just the classic home ref call, esa típica decisión casera, that a ref typically leans toward the home side when the pressure's on and you lack a bit of personality. And I'm sure that at the Bernabeu, that second yellow doesn't happen. But yes, that decision changed the whole game. Up to that point, it was perfectly set up to see who would make the semis. So guys, 2 things can be true at the same time. Bayern Munich deserved to go through, but let's be serious here. The refereeing, el arbitraje, the refereeing, especially that second yellow, was absurd. I've watched football for decades and decades, and that kind of delay happens 10 times a match and never gets a second yellow, let alone, ni que decir, let alone in a game of this caliber, de este calibre, of this caliber. How could I say this? It felt completely lopsided, descompensada, desproporcionada, lopsided. That red card really killed the game. With 11, you can sit deep and still counter. With 10, it's just game over in a tie with these 2 giants. But please, not an excuse. Bayern was better over the 2 legs, en las 2 piernas. Que no, que es en los 2 partidos, en el de ida y el de vuelta, over the 2 legs. But that call ruined, se cargó, what could have been a proper ending. And finally, yes, my beloved Madridistas, I can't ignore it. Olise was another key factor in our Champions League knockout, en nuestra eliminación, in our knockout. What a player, what dribbling, what drive, qué fuerza, qué empuje, what a complete level all round. A genuine Ballon d'Or contender, no doubt about it. And on our side, I've got to highlight a bright spot, one player in particular, Arda Güler. He's well and truly stepped up. Ha dado un paso al frente y de qué forma. He's truly stepped up as a key part of our midfield for the years ahead. What a performance! 2 great goals, real composure, entereza, sangre fría, work rate, ritmo de juego, work rate and clarity on the ball, particularly in the first half. It's true he faded a bit after the break, but at just 21, you can already say he's made it at the top level, and to do it in a legendary stadium like Bayern's. By the way, a propósito, Mendy proved again he's a very solid and strong defender, but his constant injuries are a massive issue. I'm convinced that with him and Militao fit along this season, things would have been a very different story. Guys, we've had over 50 injuries, más de 50 lesiones, and only 3 or 4 players in the entire squad have been spared. Se han librado de ellas, have been spared. Fijaos en el verbo que estoy utilizando, spared. Normalmente su uso siempre es en pasado y significa librarse de, normalmente de algo malo, claro. So only 3 or 4 players were spared injuries this season, and that's a brutal stat, una estadística brutal, to say the least. por decirlo de una forma suave, to say the least. And as for the picture of the match, I picked this one, because it perfectly sums up the different emotions. That look of disbelief, the incredulidad, disbelief, from someone who knows he hadn't really done enough for a second yellow, but also knows he gave the ref just enough an excuse to award it. And if you really look at his first booking, I'm telling you folks, that wasn't even a foul, which makes it even harder to take. At the same time, you can almost see Arbeloa's shock, probably thinking, I can't believe we've messed it up in the last minute. I should have brought on Thiago instead of Camavinga. So in a nutshell, my beloved vikingos, let's call it as it is. Let's call a spade, al pan pan y al vino vino. Bayern Munich deserve to go through. They deserve to walk through the next tie. We need serious changes in the squad. Players in, players out, and a manager who brings a structure, authority, and a clear identity. Who knows? Maybe it is Arbeloa, but only if he's given full control to shape things. I wouldn't mind that, as a matter of fact. If not, then a proven manager with a strong work ethic and a real leadership. Someone the players truly respect, genuinely respect, because this version of the team for most of the season is simply not acceptable. That's now 2 seasons in a row without a trophy, and that at Real Madrid is just brutal. Matter of fact, de hecho, the last time this happened was 16 years ago. So let's hope for the best and heads held high. Y las cabezas bien altas. Heads held high. Better days will come. Just a little bit of patience, lads. Through the good and the bad. Always a la Madrid, and I'll see you in the next video.